One of the most challenging things that Georgia will have to do on Saturday, if it is going to beat the Alabama Crimson Tide, is to limit Jalen Milroe, to limit the Alabama offense. Talked about Georgia's offense a little bit earlier in the week and how I said I was a little bit more concerned about that side of the ball. But Georgia's defense, the unit that hasn't allowed a touchdown at all in 2024 so far, through 12 quarters, no touchdowns. I'm more confident. I think that they've seen Jalen Milroe before, back in December. Right, similar teams. Obviously, things are different. Nick Saban's not around. The personnel's different for both teams. I just think that of all programs right now, there's one defensive unit that is built to stop Jalen Milroe on this Alabama offense, and I think it's Georgia's. Kirby Smart talked a lot about this week about how Jalen Milroe is making a jump as a passer and how important it is to limit his off-schedule plays in addition to the things that are on schedule. I'll share a couple of quotes about that here in a couple minutes about Kirby Smart. But this Georgia defense, you think about what it looks like when it's fully healthy. The last 2 weeks, Kentucky and the Tennessee Tech game, Georgia has been dealing with injuries in its front seven, and particularly on its defensive line. And I believe that it's going to be healthier in those spots against Alabama. In terms of Michael Williams, Kirby Smart talked about how he started doing a little bit more last week and they'll evaluate it this week. But I expect Michael Williams to suit up against the Alabama Crimson Tide. He got hurt against Clemson. Warren Brinson, another guy who got hurt against Clemson, arguably Georgia's best interior defensive lineman, at least over the last few years. That's what my eyes have told me. Obviously, I'm not talking about Jalen Carter and those guys. I'm talking about now. Is Warren Brinson. He definitely should be out there. He practiced last week, and you'd think that things ramp up for him, so he should be returning. They have a chance to get second-year guy Jordan Hall back. Just more depth, more bodies that they trust to go out there and play on that side of the ball. So you think about how Georgia's getting healthier. This bye week was very well timed for them in terms of the injuries that they have. So I think that Georgia will be more bolstered. What did you see against the Clemson offense, who just put up 50-something, 60-something against NC State, and then obviously against a bad App State team, put up 66 points, and a lot of that coming in the first half. What did you see in week one when, since that Georgia game, Clemson has been a high-level offense, just not against really great teams, but they have. Kate Klubnik's out there going 25 for 27 or something like that for 300-plus yards, multiple touchdowns, running around. Georgia shut that team down in week one. They made them look inept on offense. And that was when they're a little bit more healthy. Freshmen are out there for the first time playing significant snaps like KJ Bolden. It's a neutral site, right? It was astonishing the way that they shut down Clemson. And when they did bend, what's been the theme all year, when Georgia has bent and let teams get down the field, hold them to a field goal or force a turnover. Georgia's been really, really good on defense this year. There's a few guys who I think are breaking out. There's guys who have been good for a while. I want to talk about some of them, and I also want to give you some Kirby Smart quotes about Jalen Milroe and why it's important to limit him. But this is the side of the ball that I have a little bit more confidence in. Ryan Kelly from Dawg Post talking about Georgia's defense versus Alabama's offense, why I think this is the side that Georgia has a better chance against, even though Alabama will be at home and has a really explosive offense. You think about Ryan Williams on the outside. You think about the running backs, Jam Miller, Justice Haynes, and obviously the dual threat ability of a guy like Jalen Milroe. He's one of the best quarterbacks in college football. That doesn't mean that he's going to go on and be a fantastic NFL quarterback or a top 5 pick, but as a college quarterback, he's balling out. This is what Kirby said about Jalen Milroe on Monday, and then I will share what he said on Tuesday. On Monday, he talked about how he made a jump. Here was the quote. It's a considerable jump just as a natural pocket passer. You see him make more throws now that are like rhythm throws, on-time throws, RPO throws. You could tell he's become more comfortable with all those things. Still, some of his best and most exciting plays are when things break down or when he runs the ball by design. Either one is very dangerous, but you can see him as a deep ball passer. The vertical passing game, the shots, the rhythm throws, the outs, the timing throws, the RPO throws. He's improved immensely at that part of his game, but he's always been good at the athletic part of the game. We know that Jalen Milroe is a very athletic quarterback. We know that he's fast. We know that he can take off. He already has a 40-yard carry. He has multiple rushing touchdowns this game. He has multiple games with multiple rushing touchdowns. He's ridiculous. He can put up crazy video game type numbers. He's a video game type of football player. He's the kind of guy in Madden in a couple of years, people are going to be developing Jalen Milroe on franchise mode. That's what's going to be happening. He's not the best passer. He doesn't throw well towards the middle of the field. He's not extremely accurate. These are things he's getting a little bit better at, but he is a little bit limited as a passer. Excellent deep ball thrower. He's pretty accurate on the deep ball. He can throw it very far, and he's got good weapons that can go out and go get it. I laughed back in, I think it was April when I saw this interview. And you know what? It was probably more like March. This wasn't too long after. I'm getting these dates wrong. This would have been even further back. Excuse me. This would have been just a few weeks after Kalen DeBoer was hired. I think Pat McAfee did an interview. So we're talking about late January, early February. Kalen DeBoer went on the Pat McAfee show and said that they were planning on running the air raid offense with Jalen Milroe. And I laughed. I was like, you can't run the same offense that you ran with Michael Penix Jr. with Jalen Milroe. Michael Penix Jr. is an elite passer. Jalen Milroe isn't. Now, there are things that Jalen Milroe does a lot better than Michael Penix Jr. and vice versa. Instead, this offense has been heavy RPO, heavy option run, and heavy deep ball. They did a good job of blending a little bit of what they did at Washington and figuring out the strengths of Milroe and this Alabama offense. So I think that so far, they've shown that they're explosive on offense. Now, they weren't explosive against South Florida. I don't care what happened at the end of that game. And you should care about all four quarters. And sometimes it's okay to just swallow up and beat a team in one quarter. Just not when it's in the last few minutes against a team that you are significantly better than at home, right? It's different. Georgia struggling at Kentucky is very different than Alabama struggling at home against South Florida. I just had to get that out there. With Milroe, it's been elite. Now, Georgia's defense, I think, is a little faster than last year somehow. Somehow these linebackers got faster. Raylan Wilson looks good when he gets out there. C.J. Allen's good. Smile Munden. Imagine being a Smile Munden where you could be the starting middle linebacker for the University of Georgia for 3 years. You don't have to play the whole game. And you're probably going to be in a top 3-round pick. I think Smile Munden's got it made in terms of the way that that has gone. Now, what happened in December? They didn't get to Milroe very well, and he beat them through the air. Didn't beat them on the ground that much. He only had about 29 rushing yards when you add in the sack yards as well. And they did get to Milroe 4 times, I believe, back in December. The thing with him was they had guys on crossing routes, and when he had enough time to throw and he had enough time to move around a little bit, people got open. It's been one of the problems, and it's just a general problem that defenses have. This Georgia secondary also has a big task. They've got to stay on their guys. They got to stay on guys like Ryan Williams. They got to stay on guys like Kobe Prentice and Kendrick Law, speedsters. I think that KJ Bolden is very fast. I don't think the secondary is better. It's just not without having Kamari Lassiter and Javon Bullard. But I don't think that there's this huge drop-off. I think that the front seven has gotten better. I think there's more continuity in the linebacker play from what I saw. Last year I saw an inconsistent Jamon Dimas-Johnson. I saw a lot of rotation at the linebacker play that didn't make sense to me. And I think Georgia's tackling just took a step down. This year, you're seeing guys take a step up. You're seeing a Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins. Yeah, Tyrion. I forgot that's how he pronounces it. Tyrion Ingram-Dawkins, defensive end for Georgia. I think we're entering year 3 for him now. Maybe it's year 4. Number 1 player in South Carolina. He's finally breaking out. He's making huge plays. He's going out there and putting pressure, getting TFLs and sacks against Kentucky, getting hurt and coming back in a game where Georgia's already lacking depth at that position. Jalen Walker, guy that ESPN ranked very highly this year, and people are probably like, who's Jalen Walker? Guys that aren't Georgia fans or people that don't know Georgia are probably like, who's Jalen Walker? Well, he was a 5-star linebacker that can play middle, that can play outside, that can play coverage, and is in the backfield all the time. A sack and a half against Clemson. I don't know how many pressures against Kentucky, but it was more than 3 or 4, and multiple of those were on 3rd down when it mattered. Against a mobile quarterback like Brock Vandagriff, people like Jalen Walker are going to matter. Put Michael Williams and those guys back in the fold, and I do think that this is a slightly better defense than last year's defense. That didn't let Alabama and Jalen Milroe explode on them. They really didn't. Georgia's offense didn't produce, and Georgia's defense held Alabama a little bit, but not quite enough. This time will be a little bit different. It's going to be at night. It's going to be in Tuscaloosa. Things are going to be pointed in Alabama's way in terms of momentum. here, I just want to move on from what I'm just saying right there. Here's another quote from Kirby about Jalen Milroe, and I will wrap this up here in the next minute or two. Talking about having older secondary members like Malachi Starks and Dan Jackson and why it's important. It helps with Jalen Milroe. He's played against them too. We've got some guys in the secondary that haven't played against him. It takes great discipline against this guy, but it also takes disciplined rush. It takes a defined plan. It takes 11 people. We call it rushing coverage, working together. You have to team up against this guy. It's not going to be one guy that stops him. It has to be an 11-person plan that tries to control him. It's a lot of praise, I think, for a quarterback that is not elite at certain things, does not necessarily do certain things well. Kirby Smart knows, hey, this guy already beat us. This guy has already done what it does. Alabama won by 3. I don't know if this Alabama team is better than last year's. I'm kind of leaning towards it is. I don't think the defense is quite as good. The offense might be better. But this Georgia team, we expected this Georgia team to be a little bit better, and this defense in particular is a little bit better. But I just laid out some of the reasons why I think that they're going to help. If you're going to have a team, one of the problems with Milroe last year, as I jumbled up my thoughts, I just remembered something important. One of the problems with defending him last year was that they had so many spies on him. And they got caught up in the middle of the field, those linebackers, and there were guys running open. I don't think that you need to do that this time around, especially when you have the plethora of fast linebackers like you do at Georgia. Just don't think there are as many teams out. There aren't that many teams out there that have the linebacker group that Georgia has. They need to utilize it, I guess, a little bit. I'm not sitting here saying that Kirby Smart's strategy is wrong or something like that, but these guys can blitz. Smile Mondon can blitz. C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson, they can get to the quarterback and they can cover. I think that the Georgia has the personnel. It's about the game plan. It's about the execution at this point. Thanks for watching.